Okay, hi everyone. Thank you for joining today's session. It's the top 5 reasons to use the new Microsoft Dynamics CRM 2013. It's one of our regular sessions, so we do run them every fortnight. Today we have a special guest speaker from Microsoft. It's Technical Solutions Professional Mike Hopwood. He'll be presenting today's topic for you. Before I pass over to Mike, I just want to confirm that everyone can hear me. So we're just going to test the audio. Can everyone please raise their hands if they can hear me? So just click the hand icon under the attendee section if you can hear me okay. Okay, just waiting for a few more hands just to make sure. Okay, seems about right. All right, so we will have some time at the end for questions. I'm going to pass you over to Mike now. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much. Okay, great. So, as mentioned, we're just going to go through the top 5 reasons to use Microsoft Dynamics CRM 2013. Now, this particular release of CRM was actually came out in October this year, so it is fairly new. On the phone, I guess today we've got some people who were already using Dynamics CRM, earlier versions, probably 2011, and we also have some new people which aren't currently using the system as well. So the session is sort of going through around a little bit of the changes that have occurred since the old version, but also just some brand new stuff, so that we're trying to capture the essence of what you all are here today for. So the first top reason is around the reimagined experience, and so this is what we've done to change the user experience of interacting with a CRM system. And so what we've done is we've made it cleaner, faster, more intuitive, and we've done some more interfaces with basically improving the productivity. And so the way we've done this is by introducing a new navigation model. So on the left-hand side, we'll see that we've got what, for most of you who would have actually already been using Dynamics CRM 2011 will be familiar with, and that's navigation down the left-hand side of the screen. Now, what happens is that always sort of remains there and does take up some screen real estate when you're using the system. And in a lot of instances, you only ever need to refer to that from time to time. So what we've done is we've now optimized this and streamlined it so that there is a menu bar at the top of the screen which is only present when you need to see it, and then it hides away again afterwards. We've also made this touch enabled by making the buttons bigger. And so generally all of this has come about because we're seeing more and more devices being used rather than your traditional PCs and laptops. And these devices are in a wide range of shapes and sizes, and the screens overall are becoming smaller. So it's more and more important to be able to present this information through to you on whichever device you choose, but being able to make sure that it's still all legible. So that's why we've got the navigation where the menus show and hide based on your particular interaction. The other thing that we've done is we've changed the structure of the form. And so we've sort of highlighted a few areas here which just make it easier for people to see what's going on with the records that you're interacting with and I guess gain that information. So we can see, what is the record about? Where is the record in a particular process, which we'll talk about later? The primary information. What's the status of a record? What's happening and where are we up to? As well as, is the record currently saved? And the reason that's important is because one of the new things that we've introduced is automatic saving. So that as you're updating the record, it will just automatically save in the background, again reducing the number of clicks and making the system just easier to use. And we then have secondary information and other things around what do you need to pay attention to. One of the other things to note with this is that down at the bottom part of the screen, it's broken up into 3 columns here. However, as devices change, you can hold them in a portrait type manner or in the landscape type manner. As you physically move the device around, the screen resolution changes, and these sections actually automatically move around to give you the best experience with the system. So rather than trying to shrink it all down into a small type view where you can't actually read the labels, it keeps it the same size and just moves those components around for you. So the second reason is around process agility, which I mentioned just a little while ago. And so basically what we're seeing here is that nearly all businesses, most businesses, have some form of process that you're working with, whether it be for onboarding a new client, renewing a contract, some form of marketing activities, a sales process, etc. There is some form of process which most people are interacting with on a day-to-day basis. So what we've done is we've started to expose that through CRM. And so what we're looking at here is our business process flow view. And so what we're looking at in this particular instance is an opportunity. And this opportunity is assigned to a sales process whereby there's 4 stages. We have qualify, develop, propose, and close in this instance. And I can see this just at the top of my screen here. I can tell which particular stage I'm at because there's a flag which identifies the stage. Below that, there's then a series of things that I need to do at that particular stage. So I can see there's a customer need, a proposed solution, identify stakeholders, and identify competitors. And essentially what happens is, as we go through each of these stages within the process, there's a different series of information that we're asked to do, to complete, to mark off, to provide additional information on. And so these are all then configurable so that we're able to then, again, maximize the screen real estate and only show the things that are relevant for you at that particular point in time. And so it's really just always focused on the results driven, making sure that you're always working towards progressing it through to the next stage. Now you might look at this and say, well, that's all good and well, but we don't just have one particular process. We have multiple processes. And so that's okay. So what we've done is we've made the ability to actually switch business processes. And so if you're looking at an opportunity, for example, you might have one as a standard opportunity process. You might have one to do with collaborative selling. You might have one to do with taking opportunity over through invoice. But you can go and create these processes yourself and then start to elect which particular process is relevant for that particular record as you're going through. And in terms of the way which this is done, it's all easy to configure. You don't need any code to go and write all of this. So right now we're just looking at the screen, which is made available to relevant people that have the right security roles to build processes or to modify them. And here we can go through and we can say, well, let's go and add some new stages just by clicking on the little orange plus button. Once we're within a stage, we can then determine what are the steps that we need to do. And each of these steps then correlate through to a field within the database. And the reason this is important is because as we're going through and marking off things that are done or filling in that information, we can then start to leverage from the powerful workflow engine that comes native with Dynamics CRM as well. So for example, we could have a workflow in the background which says, well, if the purchase time frame is within 3 to 6 months, then it might automatically go in the background and say, well, we're going to go and schedule a follow-up call in 3 months' time so that then the salesperson then can come back to that particular opportunity and then follow up. So that's why, all leveraging from the fact that it is stored within the database. Once it's stored within the database, we can also report and query on that as well. The final thing which we can do in here is determine whether a particular step is required. And what this means is that I can't progress from one stage to the next until such time that I've actually gone in and completed that information or entered it. And so now we're not only just providing information to say, well, here's a suggestion of what you should be looking at doing with the particular record at that time, but we're also now forcing a business process through to make sure that there is some level of compliance being adhered to. Now, one of the other components of this is that it doesn't just work on an individual entity. It works across entities. And so what that actually means is, for those of you who are already using Dynamics CRM 2011, you might be familiar with the process of converting a lead over to an opportunity. And so what typically happens there is that you've got a lead within the record, so within your database, and you have things like their names and addresses and company names, etc. And at some particular point in time, you then qualify that. When you qualify it, it goes off and creates an account, contact, and/or opportunity. But it does go through and take you through into different areas of the system, and there's a slightly different look and feel, and you might not necessarily know where you're at in that particular process. So what the business process flow does is it helps you guide through that, where you can start to enter in a lead, as an example, and then when you go through and you fill out all of the steps and then go to the next stage, it will automatically go and create an opportunity for you. And from there, we can then start to progress through the sales cycle. Now, what happens then is at a later date of time, when you start to come and say, well, let's go and look up a particular lead, or let's look up an opportunity, regardless of whether it's in the lead status or the opportunity status, the record associated will be presented to you. So you no longer have to sort of look through to different areas within the system. And it's not just restricted to opportunities and leads. This could be a phone call, it can be accounts, it can be contacts, it can be custom entities which you go and create yourself as well. So the next reason why we recommend using Dynamics CRM in 2013 is CRM on the go. It's basically providing you access to what you need where you need it so that you can connect through to your customers. And so the way in which we've done that is we have continued the support which we brought in the later versions of CRM 2011 with multiple cross-browser support. And so basically that means that you can use Safari on a Mac and then actually access CRM from an Apple. It means you can also use Chrome or Firefox as your browser. But on top of that, we've now also developed some apps which work on an iPad and a Windows 8 device. And what these apps do is it gives you a slightly different user experience of how to interact with your system. But one really important thing it does is it gives you cached access to the records. And what that means is that if you're going through, let's just say you're sitting on a train and you're interacting with your system, and then all of a sudden the internet connection drops out. Now in a traditional web client environment, that would time out and you'd probably get an error. But what we do with these apps is it actually stores some of this information on your local device. And therefore, you can still keep interacting with that record. You can still go and modify certain things and add certain things, etc., whilst you don't have an internet connection. And then when you do have an internet connection, it will then synchronize it through. So we get this cached capability. Now, it's not a full offline mode, so it's not designed to provide you full functionality where you might go and add a huge amount of records and then once a week go and synchronize your database. It is just designed for cached mode. If you have that sort of requirement where you are very rarely able to get access to an internet connection, then we also provide offline access through the Outlook client, which, again, for those of you that are existing customers, will probably be familiar with as well. So we've continued that support. On top of that, we also have some apps which actually work on phones. So we have a Windows Phone app, we have an iPhone app, and we have an Android app. And for those of you that are using other phones, then we also have another client experience which is web only, which is called Mobile Express, which basically just provides you another view of the system which is really optimized for a mobile screen. So really it is about, no matter where you are, what sort of device you're using, you can still access CRM. So the fourth reason is around social in context. And what we're trying to do here is we're trying to work across boundaries to create the right sort of customer experience. And by doing that, we've sort of introduced this social collaboration at the forefront. Now, the way in which we've done this is we've leveraged from another product initially that Microsoft relatively recently acquired called Yammer. Now, Yammer is widely used. However, it is also a lot of organizations don't actually know what Yammer is. So I'll just explain what Yammer is. Think of Facebook for the corporate enterprise. So in Facebook, you have your own profile, and it tells you a little bit about you, and then you have a wall. And on that wall, you can then start to make posts around what it is that you're doing. You can ask questions, and people then start to follow you, or they become friends with you on Facebook, and then you start to see questions that they've asked you and see other sorts of status updates. Well, Yammer is Facebook for the enterprise. So rather than posting up, whether you're going on holidays or things like that, it can be something more related to your work environment. So it could be, has anybody seen some competitive information on this particular organization that you're competing against? It could be collaborating across country boundaries, for example, and asking for things like certain reports or other sorts of pricing approvals and things like this. And so it's just a way of collaborating within the organization. Now what we've done is we've then taken that experience and then exposed that into CRM. And so what happens here is that I'm in an opportunity right now, and Nancy Johnston, the user which I'm logged in as right now, has asked Terry Adams, what is the proposed renewal pricing for Contoso? Now Terry has then received this as an alert through Yammer and then posted back and said, we're hoping for a 15% upsell this year, and here's the formal proposal, and actually attached that Excel spreadsheet. Now, what this does is this sort of removes a lot of that traditional email which might be going backwards and forwards, and allowing people to collaborate together. But also what's happened is that Nancy is a CRM user, and right now we're in a particular opportunity for a 3,000 seat upgrade. Terry, on the other hand, he's actually not a CRM user. And so what happens here is Nancy is working on this opportunity and is interested around some pricing for Contoso, but she needs to leverage from other people in the organization which don't actually use CRM. And so what she's done is used Yammer to go and ask that question, and that question has then come right back into CRM, so that Nancy, as a salesperson in this instance, can go through and then see how are we working with other people and get all of that information related to the opportunity without having to navigate anywhere. And so it really does provide that, that cross-company collaboration. Now, that being said, we don't just restrict this to Yammer, Yammer clients. So we have another function which is called activity feeds. Now, what this does is this is available, does the same sort of thing, but it's just available for CRM users. So if you're not using Yammer, then you can still have this concept of collaboration and a wall where you ask questions and share information and things like that within the system. So this is sort of how we're introducing the collaboration. Now that's all around internal stuff. The other thing which we've done is we've recently announced a enhancement to our partnership with Inside View. So Inside View has developed an integration with Dynamics CRM, which basically leverages from big data to enhance the data that is within CRM. Now, this isn't a Microsoft product, but the partnership has been extended, and the tool set is being embedded within the system as we speak. And so basically what happens here is that if you're on an account and you type in the name of the account, Inside View will actually go out to the web and then start to search for all information about that account. And so it can tell you things like what industry are they in, what's some general description, what's their address, their phone number. It can then also go out to things like LinkedIn, for example, and look, well, who actually works for that particular company. And then within this, we're then able to go through and say, all right, well, within a couple of clicks, go and add that information or add that contact into the database. So now, if I'm going through and I'm doing there's a new target which I want to approach, I could just simply type in the name of that company into CRM, and then within seconds, Inside View is going out there, sourcing all of this information, and then collating it all for us. And then again, within a couple of clicks, we're able to go through and get who is the CEO or who is the CFO or whoever it is that you need to speak to, and get that added into the database. So traditionally, you might have gone through and then started to entered the company into Bing, and then started to find out, well, what is the information that's going on. You then go to LinkedIn and source all of this information. It can be quite cumbersome to get all of that and collate it all, and quite time-consuming. But now what Inside View does is it summarizes all of that, brings it all into the one place, and allows you to do all of this right from within CRM. So the fifth reason why we recommend Dynamics CRM 2013 is around platform enhancements. So we want to make sure that it's easy to use. The easy-to-use configuration tools allow you to extend the system without the need for any code to be written. So to explain that a little bit further, what traditional CRM, or what Microsoft CRM provides out of the box, is a number of different workloads. We have sales, marketing, and service. But it's actually a platform. So what this does is it allows us to go and do extended relationship management, or XRM. And this is where we can just pick up anything we like and start to track that within the system. So there's some people doing employee management. There's some people doing contract management. There's some people doing asset management. Whatever it might be, you can go and add that as an entity and then start to track the relationships between those records within the system, as well as any interactions that your staff have with it, and in a process that you might go through, or processes that you might go through in order to maintain or acquire or whatever it might be with that particular record, to allow you to then gain additional insights. Now, all of this is then presented across multiple devices, whereby we have a tablet form, desktop form, and a mobile form as well. And we're leveraging from the Microsoft platform, whereby we're utilizing Microsoft Office, Link, SharePoint, and it all sits on a SQL server. And now we've also introduced the Yammer social collaboration tool as well. Now, all of this then is also provided in a choice of deployment models. So it can either be done in the cloud or on-premise. So overall, this particular platform it's very flexible and gives you a lot of choice around how you want to use it, what sort of things you want to gain out of it, and how you want to deploy. And so this is one of the key differentiators of Microsoft Dynamics over a lot of our competitors, where it really is you have the power to choose what you want to use the system for and how you want to deploy. Now, on top of that, what we've now done is we've introduced a business rules engine. And what that does is that it really provides extended configuration capabilities. So we can go through and then create multiple business rules on entities, and then go through and basically say, well, in certain conditions, we want certain actions to happen. And so some of the actions can be things like showing and hiding a field. It can be setting fields as mandatory. It can even be displaying a message. And so if you look at the screenshot here, what we're saying is that if an account is a customer, then we want to make sure that the account number is shown and that it's also set as a required field. And so these sorts of things, they could have been done traditionally by utilizing a little bit of JavaScript. However, now we can do this just by simply clicking configure. And so now you have a lot more power to extend the tool yourself and build this up to make sure it's a great line of business application for you. The other thing which we've done is we've introduced a quick create function. Now what this does is I mentioned earlier with the user experience that we've reduced the pop-ups, but we still want to make sure that you're able to go and do any of the functions which you find relevant. And so in this particular instance, on the screenshot, I'm actually sitting on an account which is grayed out in the background. I've then decided that I want to go and create a contact. So I go and do that. Now, over the top of the screen, still within the one window, I've now got an ability to go through and create a contact. Now, this is actually it's a minimal data set. So the way which you sort of think about this from an implementation perspective is what are the most important things that you need to capture when you're adding a particular type of record, whether it be a contact, a company opportunity, or anything custom that you've decided to put in there yourself. And so what's the minimum things that need to be captured so that you can do it nice and quickly? Now, once we go through and we quickly create these, then the system will then pop up and say, do you want to go over to that record now, or do you want to stay on the record which you're on previously? And so that way you get the choice, and in a lot of instances, you don't need to actually go to that record, because it could have been, for example, that you were working on an opportunity and then happened to be through a particular conversation that somebody said, hey, did you know that John Smith is a consultant, and then for this particular opportunity. So you can go and create John Smith as a contact. Now, you don't need to go and look at John Smith afterwards. You just want to keep working on the opportunity that you're working on at hand. So that's what this sort of capability does. It's all around just maximizing that productivity. So just sort of just to summarize there, the 5 top reasons why you might want to use Dynamics CRM is the reimagined experience. It's the process agility, it's CRM on the go, it's social in context, and it's platform enhancements. Now, on top of that, we're just going to give you one other little hint and tip. So one of the things which is available for, it's actually available in 2011, but we just like to remind people of this, because I think it's just such a really powerful tool, is the way which you can improve your performance with inline reporting. And what I mean by that is that when you're looking at a list of records in CRM, you have the ability to view that list in a graphical format as well by the charts. So for those of you, you're probably already familiar with things like dashboards. And so dashboard is a great way of just getting a nice snapshot of the information to present you things like your pipelines or your outstanding activities or where you're tracking within your particular goals or KPIs, etc. And it's just all that it's pushed to you. What these does is it interacts with your lists or views that you've created. So in this particular instance, I've got a list of all opportunities on the left-hand side. I'm then actually viewing on the right-hand side the actual revenue by month. And so you can see very quickly within this that it highlights where there is certain peaks and troughs. And so from here I can say, well, in December 2013 there was a big peak of revenue. Now, viewing that information is one thing. Where this becomes really powerful is when you actually start to interact with that graph and you click onto the particular month, in this instance December 2013. As you do so, the list of records on the left-hand side filters down and just shows you those opportunities which were actually realized in December 2013. And so now, rather than going through and doing queries in the database manually or sorting records and trying to figure out what are the records you want to focus on, you just interact with the graph. But on top of that, this is then able to create additional graphs on the fly. So what I want to do is actually take you into the system and give you a little bit of a feel of how this would all work. So right now we're looking at the new CRM 2013. And so I'll just sort of go through and show you some of the things which I've mentioned. And so first thing is, as I go and hover my mouse over the top of the screen, you'll notice that the windows or the menu starts to pop down. And so from here within sales I can go and say, okay, well let's go over and look at our opportunities, for example. And so when I go in to look at my opportunities, let's just flick it over to all opportunities, all open opportunities. Okay. Within here, on the right-hand side, I get access to my charts. Now these charts, I can go and create multiple charts. And so I've got different sorts of reports that I want to look at. And so I can see my top customers, I can see my pipeline, for example, etc. And these are all, again, configurable, so stuff that you can do without any code. This is all interactive. So now what I could say is, well, I want to go and click onto this particular section of the pipeline, and on the left-hand side it filters down just to those particular relevant records. Now from here, though, I'm then able to go and start to choose other fields that I might want to report on. So as an example, I could say, well, let's go and take a look at the estimated close date, and I want to put this in a line graph. And then I go and click on the OK here. Now what this then does is it goes through and shows me another view of how I might want to look at this data. Again, from here I can then start to drill through and then on the left-hand side see those particular records. So it's a nice way of looking up records and focusing in on the things that are most important. Now just while I'm here, I'll also just quickly show you through a little bit of the process. So I'm going to go into this particular opportunity now. And as I do so, what we'll see at the top of the screen is our process. Okay, so I can see here that we've got the qualify, develop, propose, etc. And so I can see within the develop I've got a few things that I need to do. And I can mark something, identifying the stakeholders. I can mark that off as complete. Thereafter, I can go through and say, well, let's go to the next stage. As I progress through to the next stage, then the things which I need to do all change. So now I can see, well, at this stage I need to go and identify a sales team and develop a proposal and complete an internal review, etc. And so I'm only ever presenting that information that's important. However, at any point in time, I can go back and click onto a previous stage and then see what's there. All right. Now, at this point, then I'm just going to hand back over to Angelina just to go through the rest for you. Thank you.
Okay, so does anyone have any questions at this point? We're happy to answer a few. You can just write in the questions box down the bottom if you do have a question. We'll just give you a few moments.
Okay, so we've got a question here. It says, do you have links to basic tutorials for customers who need to start right from the beginning? Well, what actually happens when you first log into Dynamics CRM 2013, it actually pops up with a screen asking you if you want to go through a tutorial. And so what that does is it actually takes you through a series of videos really to help you through right from the outset, creating records and how to look things up, etc. So short answer, yes, that's actually built into the system. Okay, so we've got another question here around how easy is it to customize the workflows once they're set, and how easy is it to change? So what I might actually do here is I might actually just flick back into the system and then and show you how that's done. So if we look here, we're in the opportunity right now, and so what I can do here is I can go through, get onto more commands, and I can say edit process. And so as I go through and edit the process, we then get a pop-up here, and we can start to see, we can then start to see the screen itself. So I think we might actually have a pop-up blocker blocking us. Sorry, folks. Edit the process, here we go. Okay, so let's just say if at the develop stage we wanted to go in and add a new step in here. Then it's really just as simple as add new step, say eSavvy question. And then here we go through and then we start to choose which particular field in the database is that relevant to. So I don't know, let's just say current situation, and we can determine whether that's required or not. From here, then it's really just a case of just saving that, and we're done. So as you can see, it's quite a simple process to modify these. Okay, so we've got another question. Is it possible to make the navigation buttons a bit smaller? Short answer is no. Basically, it's specifically been designed like that so that it is touch-enabled, so that when you're on any sort of device, I mean, a lot of laptops these days, actually the screens themselves are touch-enabled, so you can go and hit that. So it's a combination of using your keyboard, your mouse, and also touching the screen. So it has been specifically designed that way.
Okay, so someone did ask about capturing the webinar. We are going to send you a confirmation email at the end with the link to this recorded session, and we'll also be inviting you to our next session, which is on maximising the ROI of your CRM investment, and it's going to be run by our Managing Director, David Goad. It's got some real-life business examples in there. It's a very exciting session, so we'd hope to see you guys there as well. At the end of this session, once it's ended, you will be prompted to take part in a quick survey. It's just 4 basic questions, and it'd be fantastic if you could fill that out for us. We'd really appreciate that. We do understand that there is a lot of unanswered questions. What we will do, just to ensure that the session runs on time, is we'll answer those and we'll actually send them to you via email at the conclusion of this session, okay? Again, so if you have any other questions, there's the email right there, so you can contact us. Check out our website as well for a few of the other on-demand webinars. So there's a few topics on some basic things in regards to CRM. There's a sales webinar, marketing webinars, things of that nature, so feel free to have a look at that. On behalf of eSavvy and Microsoft, we just want to say thank you very much for attending the session, and we hope that you found it informative. Have a good day, guys.